to give us what we need. Hey! I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the point where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. With you and God in time, I best align.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right.
We gonna get it right. We gonna get it right. That's right. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and chief White House correspondent. I'm in touch, so you be in touch at Dr. Nii-Quartelai on all the social media platforms. Just go ahead and search Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and I pop right on up. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and we got you covered. Also, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. This has been our inaugural week in afternoon drive time. And for those of you that have been rocking with us since May 2022, when we launched, you can see how well we have enjoyed stretching out. It means adding another hour to the show. So 1 hour or 2 hours. You know, we're on Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time, at 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern for our friends here on the East Coast, where I'm broadcasting live. And, you know, our pledge to you is to be a place where you can get your daily political news digest. You know, we're going to share with you, some of the things that you need to know, most important things that you need to know. But we also want to make sure that we're a place where you can come and rely on expert analysis on trending issues of the day from people that know what they're talking about. There's a lot of mis and disinformation out there, and we definitely want to be in the business of dispelling that mis and disinformation. But we don't want to stop there. We want to be a place where the voices that are shaping the culture and exercise those voices here, where we can talk to people that are on the front lines, doing the heavy lifting to create a more perfect union. It's pretty simple in terms of what our mission is. It can be a little challenging to create a more perfect union, but we're all up for it, right? And speaking up for it, there are a number of folks that are on the ground in the city and county of Los Angeles doing that work to build a more perfect union, starting in the community. I want to give a shout out to a few people. Greg Doolan, for anybody that has cruised down Crenshaw, I'm sure you've seen Doolin's Soul Food. Well, Doolin Soul Food has the Doolinville food truck with delicious soul food that is heading to the fire zone in Altadena. World Central Kitchen brought them there to serve dinner to 500 people. That's families and firefighters. They need our prayers. They need us to heed their warnings, but they also need a good meal. And so, hat tip to Doolinville Food Truck, courtesy of Gregory Doolin, out there working with World Central Kitchen to make the world a little better place, starting in Altadena, at least tonight, with a warm meal. And so it was really good to see that. And we want to make sure we do our part to feature the folks that are on the front lines that are loving thy neighbor, people that are being the good, and folks that are extending themselves in kindness and in service as the next few hours and days, weeks, the next hours and days are filled with so much uncertainty. And this also comes as a friendly reminder that, everybody is impacted by this. Everybody, people may not have been impacted the same way. Some people have lost everything, right? But for the people who have something, there are a lot of people who are opening up their doors. A lot of people are opening up their refrigerators. A lot of people that are doing something. On this show every day, we end the show saying, do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means do something. And that spirit is afoot in Los Angeles. And so we definitely want to recognize that spirit. And we also want to remind you that nobody is shielded from the catastrophe that we are watching unfold as well. People magazine reporting that Anthony Hopkins lost his Pacific Palisades home, the apparent location where he often posted videos on his popular TikTok playing the piano or getting ready for the Oscars. Mama Tina Knowles, the mother of Beyonce, said that it was her favorite place, her sanctuary, her sacred, happy place. Now it's gone. And so it seems like Tina Knowles' home is no more. Jenny Aiko said that she and her children's home is gone. It's burned to the ground with all of their things inside. Eugene Levy told the LA Times that he found himself stuck by, quote, black and intense smoke as he tried to leave his home. Photos later confirmed his home had been destroyed. And John Goodman, his Pacific Palisades home was demolished in the fire. And Bozoma St. John, one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but a lot of folks in corporate America know as the chief marketing officer for brands like Netflix and Uber. Well, she posted that this is the house where I finally felt like I could choose to spend time when I wanted to and how I wanted to, and it's gone. This is an unimaginable loss. And so, these are just a few folks that we all may be a bit more familiar with that are among the more than 80,000 people displaced, many of whom have called the area home for decades. And so, our hearts and our prayers are with each and every one of them. And the only way to get to the other side of this catastrophe is going to be in community. And so we want to make sure we're doing our part to highlight and underscore where people can go for support and for resources as we all navigate these uncertain waters. When we come forward, I'm interested in navigating some of the politics of what's afoot with Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter. He is a UCLA professor of African American Studies, and he's an author. And he is on the ground in Los Angeles. And so we want to tap in to what he is seeing, and more importantly, tap into his analysis of the political fallout that in some ways may be getting in the way of the emergency response to this catastrophic wildfire that at this hour is 0% contained. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
You okay?
I can't sleep with this cough.
Sounds like you need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with NyQuil VapoCool. It's NyQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
So you ready to get some sleep? Thank you, NyQuil VapoCool.
NyQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing nighttime coughing, aching, fever, best sleep with a cold medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Oh, this new dose is... nope, that's not it. The price is nowhere to be found.
Mr. Green? Hi, it's all good. We've got this.
This is not just help from a Walgreens pharmacist.
Oh, new prescriptions. Cool. Let me check to see if these are the lowest cost options covered by your Medicare plan.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
This is someone supporting you every step of the way. Chat with a pharmacist today to find help saving. This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes. So it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests as we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to return to my first full week on the air and to launch our inaugural week of A More Perfect Union, an afternoon drive time in Los Angeles with my friend and brother, Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter. He is professor of African American Studies at UCLA. We won't hold the UCLA against him. And he's also the author of a really great book. It's called Radical Reparations, Healing the Soul of a Nation. Dr. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Peace. Shout out to you and KBLA. I'm all about this reforming January 6th into something that is progressive and for Black people. So I'm loving that.
Well, we love that you're loving it. And I have reason to believe you are not alone. Speaking of not being alone, I want to give you an opportunity to share with us how you're doing on today. We know that with the news that is swirling with the wildfires that at this hour are still 0% contained in Los Angeles, that the best we can do is take it hour by hour, day by day. And so how are you checking in today as somebody on the ground in Los Angeles?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you covering this issue. I will say most people are probably dealing with deep anxiety. So right before I even joined, there was a reframe of a evacuation notice that was sent out broadly across LA County. And we're like, wait a minute, so should we be leaving now, all of us? And so they had to, it was a tech error. So just imagining like, you're just staying inside and basically for me, I've just been on what we call in the Baptist church, the main line. You just pray, you pray for those to be safe. Life is most important first. Possessions are valuable, but not more important than life. And so a lot of times just like praying for people, checking in on people. A dear friend of mine and her community in Altadena is completely gone. And so she left the house, shout out to Catherine Frazier. She left the house, middle of the night, not expecting to come back to everything being gone. And so it's also the idea of like, grief and loss that is happening at the same time as quite literally ashes are falling down like snow in the LA area.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you as a native Californian, I have never seen the kind of pictures and videos or have heard the stories that keep coming. I mean, folks who have lost everything in a flash, and where there is seemingly no end in sight right now. I want to double click on the folks that are on the ground organizing in places like Altadena, for example. I was just talking with my colleague, Dominique DePrima, during the commercial break about some of the work that is afoot there. She alerted me to some extraordinary work being led by folks like Brandon Lamar in Altadena. I understand that he is the incoming NAACP president for the region. I had mentioned earlier Greg Doolin, the owner of Doolin's on Crenshaw, is working with World Central Kitchen, and right now they are setting up shop in Altadena to feed 500 families and firefighters. And so while there's a lot of attention being devoted to the Palisades, and rightfully so, it's important that our leaders, learners, and listeners across the country that may be less familiar with the geography understand that there are a number of communities that are dealing with the grief and the loss all at once. There are multiple fires that are taking place right now. Dr. Hunter, for our audience, can you orient folks to just some of the history of Altadena as it relates to the Black community?
Yeah, real quick and easy. I did a long decennial census survey analysis where you basically look at the Black population in the LA area over time. So as early as about 1860 forward. And what's really fascinating about Altadena is that one, it has had a historic Black population since the 1900s-ish. And as the LA city has lost Black population, Altadena has maintained its Black population. So we're talking about people who have been in that area from the time they arrived in California. Many of those homes that we're seeing now just gone. The other thing that's important to think about there is, and even my friend Catherine, she was mentioning, the community is like a small town. Everyone knows everyone. People really care. Like, people think of LA as this big city where all of these people are strangers and no one knows each other. This place is quite literally different. It is really a place where it is a neighborhood that is just very large. And all of these folks in his neighborhood know the restaurants and the gas station attendants, the supermarket clerks, the cashiers. These are all a part of a community, and it's very devastating. And what's even more devastating is that some of those folks who have been there for a long time don't have homeowners insurance. And so this leads to a broader question that I'm sure our brothers and sisters in Florida are facing around homeowners insurance, around natural disasters, around what can be taken care of, how are people made whole from this experience, and also from the trauma that comes from it as well. And I'm glad that you're lifting up Altadena, because it is important for people to understand it also as having a very significant Black population.
That's right. That's right. And I appreciate you lifting up the insurance crisis there. I've been saying this and will continue to say that right now, the city and county of Los Angeles, in my view, represents ground zero of the convergence of the climate crisis, the insurance crisis, and the housing affordability crisis. And, you know, you can't isolate any one of those crises because they are deeply intertwined. You know, I can only imagine what it might feel like to have lost everything. And then the question that naturally comes up is, are you going to rebuild? Right. And, you know, how can you fairly answer that question if the insurance companies are saying, well, we're not going to offer fire insurance for this area anymore.
Yeah, right.
And so, you know, this represents a major challenge. Talk to us about some of the politics around this insurance crisis that has been bubbling up in California. And, you know this as well as I do. As goes California, as goes the nation. So if the insurance companies get away with not having to pay a dime to folks who've been negatively impacted by these fires, imagine what it's going to be like for folks, you know, who are in the next hurricane path or the next tornado path or the next flood zone.
Right. Yeah, I think first you make such great points that all I can do is just, you know, add a little bit of a sprinkle to say that first and foremost, in the case of LA, we also are seeing, let's just use two of the many fires, by the way, many fires going on. Pacific Palisades, which has a very high household income, very high educational income, and very white. And then we think about Altadena, which I just already described in so many other kinds of details, is in many ways very different. There are people who are wealthier in Altadena, but it's two of those communities. The question, a hypothetical we might have and give to a very wonderful graduate student who will write a dissertation on it would be, what is going to be the quality of experience of those two communities as they engage with the homeowners insurance companies? My guess is going to be very different, very different. The other thing that I will say too is that in the aftermath, how much is insurance going to cost on a home? And will that make it even more costly to even own a home in Los Angeles? So there may be fire hazard insurance, but now it might be twice the price of your mortgage. Is that what you want now? So that's another issue that we see. But among all of the issues, I think what I see with this is an opportunity that unifies everyone in a common cause and need for our government to be of service to us, especially our elected officials. And we've seen things like houselessness go on. Now we have houselessness increasing rapidly day by day. 72 hours, houselessness has increased, not decreased. And this is not the existing houselessness that was already there. So now we have people experience it for multiple reasons, whether it be natural disaster, housing shortage, mental illness issues. Now, a big community of varied interests and varied backgrounds are all having that experience as well, and seeing the gaps we have in our government around support and aid.
And so, in your view, do you think things are going to get a whole lot worse before they get better?
Well, you know, I just think, you know, what I hope is that there gets to be some serious containment, you know. Until we can really talk about serious percentages of containment, everyone in LA is living under a fear, because at any point the winds can blow. There are forecasts for more Santa Ana winds that will just be blowing things around again. And the importance about those winds for folks who don't know is that when those winds pick up, that's what also makes it difficult for the fire to be attended to. You can't get to it. So people might wonder, it was just burning for 24 hours and I didn't see any waterfall. Is because quite literally 100-mile-an-hour winds mean that people and machines can't get to this area in any meaningful way to stop the damage that's happening. So part of what we want is containment, and then after we can get to containment, I think it's easier to assess the true significance of the losses and whether or not we're in a continual loss or are we going to be able to begin recovering when we get to a certain place of containment.
When we come forward, I want to lean into the conversation around the politics of what's afoot. Again, for our national audience that may be a little less familiar with LA politics, there are a number of folks that are choosing to politicize this emergency. While we're not even a week into it, and folks are politicizing this emergency, they are pulling focus away from first responders, from folks who've been impacted. And I want to ask you if you think that any of that is happening unfairly. More with Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter, a UCLA professor of African American Studies. And again, is a great book that you should pick up. His thought leadership is something else. It's called Radical Reparations, Healing the Soul of a Nation. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered about issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, you tuned into the right place. A More Perfect Union continues when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. The Supreme Court is allowing President-elect Trump's sentencing in the New York hush money case to move forward. Thursday, the High Court rejected Trump's request to block criminal proceedings in the case. Yet another fire is triggering immediate evacuations in Los Angeles. This time it's in the area of West Hills, Hidden Hills, and nearby neighborhoods in the western edge of San Fernando Valley. A Bronx construction company owner is being indicted for stealing $67,000 in wages from 10 immigrant workers. Black Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg says Paul Kendis of KEP Construction LLC issued bad checks, withheld overtime, and failed to pay some workers despite receiving over $1.3 million from the contractor. And former President Carter's body is now in Georgia after his Washington, D.C. state funeral. Carter, who died at 100, will be buried in Plains, Georgia, next to his wife. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Our focus is on the 101 right now because it's shutting down out of Woodland Hills. Northbound 101, they'll divert you off at Topanga Canyon. And southbound, they're going to roll you off at Canaan Road. This is due to the fire that's burning in the West Hills area. The smoke has been just billowing over the 101 freeway, and the fire is moving quickly. So that's a pretty huge stretch of the 101 that they're shutting down. And the weird thing is that the delays that I'm seeing are enormous making your way northbound, especially out of Agora Hills, leaving just about Canaan Road as you make your way into Oxnard. So heads up there if you decide to travel northbound. The southbound side, it's clearing out approaching Topanga Canyon. And then beyond, we're still seeing some slow traffic ahead as you continue into Encino, Studio City, and ahead in Hollywood on that 101.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA postponed the Lakers game tonight at Crypto.com Arena because of the wildfires in Los Angeles County. The Lakers were scheduled to play the Charlotte Hornets. No makeup date was announced. The Lakers are in town for their next 8 games. They're scheduled to play San Antonio Saturday night at Crypto. Lakers coach J.J. Redick was renting a home in Pacific Palisades, one of the hardest hit areas damaged by the wildfires. Redick's family was evacuated on Tuesday while the Lakers were on the road. The college football playoffs is making history tonight. Notre Dame and Penn State are meeting in the semifinals at the Orange Bowl in Miami. The game features two black head coaches, Notre Dame's Marcus Freeman and Penn State's James Franklin. One of them will be the first black head coach to advance to a national championship game in football. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Come to
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah,
gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need.
Hey! I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach, transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal, prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and he is Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter. He is a UCLA professor of African American Studies, also the author of Radical Reparations, Healing the Soul of a Nation. And we are nowhere close to healing from the catastrophe that is still unfolding in the city and county of Los Angeles. But that hasn't stopped some folks from seizing the day to politicize the emergency response to this catastrophe. I want to tick down just sort of a few sort of recurring claims here before I get your take, Dr. Hunter. Regarding the Los Angeles Fire Department budget, there's a rumor out there that the mayor cut their budget by $17 or almost $20 million. The mayor recently helped secure more than $100 million worth of raises for LA Fire Department firefighters, and there are reports that those raises were assumed in the budget. Claims that the budget cut Los Angeles Fire Department are misleading. That's what we're hearing coming out of the office of the mayor regarding water hydrants in the Pacific Palisades. Apparently, it's a myth about water tank preparations. It was debunked by LADWP, which reported all million-gallon tanks were filled prior to Tuesday. And then regarding the politicized attacks, the Los Angeles Police Protective League called out Rick Caruso. This was Mayor Bass's opponent in the last election. The LA Police Protective League called him out for politicizing this tragedy and spreading misinformation. And so, Dr. Hunter, those are the facts, but how do these facts jive with your experience on the ground and your political analysis?
Yeah, I think, sometimes, what they say, if you don't have anything good to say, you don't say anything at all, would be my advice to Mr. Caruso and others. I was watching Fox News and they were talking a lot about how Mayor Bass responded coming off the plane from Ghana, and there was a pause in her statement, which I take to be a certain amount of thoughtfulness that she wants to put in her statements. And that pause became a talking point about whether or not she was urgent or caring and all sorts of things. And I think firstly and foremost, a fire doesn't care if you're gay, straight, Republican, Democrat, independent, green. They don't care if you picked Trump or Cornel West or Kamala Harris. The fire is blazing through people's lives and taking everything that they ever owned. And in a place like LA, where your house is your major asset more than any other place in the country because of the sheer value of the home, the sheer loan debt that you take on in order to be a homeowner here, or even to pay your rent in some of these apartment buildings, that those people deserve the dignity of not having their experience be politicized or weaponized into anything other than how can we get more support, anything other than more water, more resources, a bigger infrastructure of compassion. So when I hear politics coming out, what I hear is the lack of empathy and compassion. People who have died, so when these ashes are falling, and they're falling not on just my house, on homes all across the landscape, that's people's possessions. That's somebody's wedding dress. That's somebody's life. There are 5 people they're reporting right now already killed. That is someone's someone's degree, someone's bedroom, someone's kitchen. It's all falling down like nothing onto people's properties. And so when I hear that, my initial response is to call upon a deeper sense of humanity. There will always be a post. We are grateful to know at some point there has to be a post in this, and you can do that then. There will be more ample time to politicize the tragedy, but not while it's unfolding, not while I have friends who I've still not been able to get contact with, while I know there are people still searching for their relative to make sure that they're well and that they're okay, where there are missing lives and pets and all sorts of things. It's not a good look. It's not appropriate. And we also know enough about America to know that there's the post of it all where we can do all of that at that time.
And just to put a finer point and really double click on so much of what you just said, shortly before we went on air, President Biden and Vice President Harris had assembled members of the cabinet at the White House and were giving an update on the federal response. And let me also just note that apparently Mayor Bass has been in direct conversation with President Biden, including on today. And President Biden said that federal funding will increase from 75% to 100% for the next 180 days. He told Californians that federal government will spare no expense to protect our communities, with his number one focus being on the containment of the fires, particularly in the Pasadena, Sylmar, and Pacific Palisades area. He also pledged 400 additional federal firefighters, 30 planes and helicopters, 8 CI-30s, and 500 ground clearing personnel. This is all in addition to the aircrafts that have been sent courtesy of our friends in Canada. The second focus of the president talked about was on displaced people, where the FEMA director is on the ground right now in Los Angeles. In fact, I think she is participating in a press conference led by Mayor Bass as we're on the air right now. And then Vice President Harris, whose LA home was in an evacuation area, is approaching this not as some, intellectual exercise, but as a family that's impacted. Vice President Harris saying that what we've seen is, quotes, apocalyptic in Southern California, talking about how the situation is dynamic, in play, and unpredictable. She went on to say that we're literally waiting to see which way the wind blows, but didn't pass up the opportunity to praise firefighters and remind the thousands of families that are displaced, many of them with kids, nowhere to go, that the federal government's thinking about them. And lastly, she didn't pass up the opportunity to say, sadly, many insurance companies have canceled insurance for families impacted. And so, this is a vice president and president that clearly understand the dynamics that are at play here. Talk to us about the importance of our elected officials, leaning into opportunities to demonstrate empathy, and helping us to heal when clearly there is no end in sight for this catastrophe at this hour.
That's right. And then if we just lay on that, California was the first in the nation to do a reparations commission report, which then found that there were harms that go way back to its founding. That's laid on top of what's happening now. So we're also talking about so many crises that are being laid on top of what is happening now. These are Black people, like I was saying, Altadena, that are descendants of enslavement, descendants of slavery now who make a life for themselves, and now all of it is gone. And now maybe you have an insurance company that says, we don't insure you anymore. This is the reality. The thing that stands out to me the most is that you mentioned about 180 days, there would be 100% support. That overlaps with Donald Trump becoming the next president. And so one would hope that the compassion and the pray for LA that is circulating now remains the same type of time that the president will be on when that transfer of power happens. That we don't see just because California voted Democrat, that now that they're in this thing that you have to kiss the ring or do some weird political gymnastics to get the support that we know, because lives are literally on the line.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We are having a very important conversation, a conversation that we typically would have sometime out from the early days of a crisis of this proportion. But because there is so much mis and disinformation that is circulating, I really felt the need for us to dive into the politics of this a little sooner than we might ordinarily do that. When we come forward, I want to keep Dr. Hunter with us just a little bit longer. It's also not lost on us that today we laid to rest the 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter, someone who wasn't a stranger to not just the Black community here in the United States, but the Black diaspora. When we come forward, I want to ask Dr. Hunter how he's remembering the life and legacy of Jimmy Carter. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I joined the military for my kid and his mom. I miss my son a lot. One of the things with the military is tobacco. But I saw a lot of people try to deal with mental issues. Everyone's vaping constantly. After my first hit of a vape, I was hooked like that. Once I got back home from my deployment, I caught my son trying to hit my vape. That was it. I had to quit.
Californians are beating big tobacco. You can too. For free support, text Kick Nicotine to 66819 today.
Ever have one of those days where your gut just feels blah?
Ugh, yes.
Occasional bloating or gas could be signs that your gut is out of balance. but Align Probiotic can help. Align 24/7 Digestive Support is a daily use probiotic with a unique strain to help relieve occasional digestive issues. It's the #1 doctor recommended brand. So when you feel the signs, it's time to try Align. Align Probiotic. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with Dayquil VapoCool. It's Dayquil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is Dayquil VapoCool.
Dayquil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We are learning so much and getting a lay of the land with Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter, a UCLA professor of African American Studies, also the author of Radical Reparations, Healing the Soul of a Nation. Before we learn a little bit about Dr. Hunter's reflection on our 39th president, I want to make sure that our leaders, learners, and listeners know how to help the victims of the LA fires. It's one thing to give you updates on containment and the latest in terms of what's happening in terms of the fight to extinguish these fires that are fueling this catastrophe. It's another thing to tell you where you can go for support. You should absolutely be following the Los Angeles Fire Department on your social media. You should be following LAFD Foundation. That's the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. You can register that nonprofit for help and support. I've been following the Watch Duty app and encourage folks to download that. It's a free app, Watch Duty app, where you can get real-time updates with maps in terms of what's happening where. Also in terms of shelters. There are evacuation shelters across the city, including the Westwood Recreation Center, the El Camino Real Charter High School. That's an evacuation center. The Pasadena Convention Center is a human evacuation shelter. And then for folks with animals, there are a number of evacuation shelters for your animals, including the Los Angeles Equestrian Center in Burbank, the Pierce College Equestrian Center in Woodland Hills, the Rose Bowl Stadium in Pasadena, the Agora Animal Care Center in Agora Hills, the Pasadena Humane Society, and of course, Pasadena, and the Pierce College Equestrian Center. And then volunteers. I mentioned earlier, shout out to Doolin Soul Food, who's working closely with World Central Kitchen right now on the ground in Altadena, providing dinner to 500 families and firefighters. World Central Kitchen, I'm sure, could use some extra volunteer hands there. But be sure to check out what the American Red Cross of the Los Angeles region, what they're doing. You can check out what they're doing there, and then to donate. I know that the California Community Foundation has a fund that's set up, and so you want to check out calfund.org/funds/wildfire recovery fund. You can go there to tap them for resources. There's also the California Fire Foundation, the LA Fire Department Foundation, and again, World Central Kitchen. And so, feel free to share this podcast or tell somebody to download the KBLA app where they can continue to get information they can trust. And so, speaking of information that we can trust, Dr. Hunter, I want to get your point of view on the life and legacy of our 39th president, Jimmy Carter, who has been laid to rest in Plains, Georgia. How are you remembering him? And how, should Black folks, not just here in the United States, but across the diaspora, remember the life and work of Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, I think a couple of things come to mind, and I'll root it in his very famous statement in his inauguration as the governor of Georgia, where he said the time for racial discrimination is over. And he had run on a campaign where there had been dog whistles about, racism and making people scared and white supremacy. And then he came in and made that very important statement, and then acted on many things that folks who know his history knows that he credited learning morals or his humanity from a Black woman on his farm named Miss Rachel Carter. And it was a Black woman. And so the combination of those things says to me something I say a lot in my own work as a teacher and sometimes organizer, sometimes activist, is oftentimes somebody might be one conversation away from a new way of thinking. And a lot of times what happens is people have to get out something that's taking up space in order to let in something that might actually nourish them. And his, I think, example demonstrates that if we actually think about each other as just that conversation away, that we can get closer to that kind of humanity that we saw through his administration. This is where we see Black women making waves in the government, in terms of Black judges making their ways into the judicial branch of our government through his leadership. But he started off as someone who was probably a segregationist, starting off from a very opposed standpoint and leaning somewhere that was way more inclusive. And I think his example should be a long reminder that as long as people are alive, there's a new opportunity to do something that is still free in a world where everything costs something, and that is change your mind.
I think that's beautiful. And, it's a reminder that, we all have an opportunity to lean into our Jimmy Carter era. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we get so wrapped up in, whatever job or job title that we have at the moment. And we forget that, being human, which is the first part of being a humanitarian, right? It goes beyond any job title you could ever hold, right? And so, I love how, folks are sort of talking about the life and legacy of Jimmy Carter in the same way that they sort of talked about the presidency of FDR, for example, or they talk about the legislative legacy of LBJ, right? Folks who are regarded as great presidents, particularly on issues related to civil and human rights. And to think of Jimmy Carter in that way, post-presidency, think about it. He has not just raised the bar, he has set the bar very high when it comes to what's possible post-presidency. What what ideas, what possibilities are you hoping that President Biden and Vice President Harris are taking away from this extraordinary life, this extraordinary legacy?
Yeah, that the work can continue without the position. I mean, this has been one of the things around the current election cycle where President Biden was in and then out. And to remember, and we're even doing it now in the advocacy space, you're still president. You know, you go on to be former president. There is still a platform and a mantle that you hold that can do a lot of work. I mean, he's still in the place right now, President Biden is, to pardon Kimba Smith and Michelle West and a bunch of Black women who have been put into prison for nonviolent drug offenses under the 1994 crime bill, that with those mandatory statutes that he heralded at the time. You can still do that even when you're finished being in the Oval Office as former president. You have a mantle that you can use that we saw Jimmy Carter do to be a peace warrior, you know, to really promote that. You don't need the White House in order to continue to promote what things like racial equity, all sorts of things. So I think what you're saying is a point well taken and extends out into everything that Kamala Harris said still applies. She still has a mantle as former vice president, first Black woman vice president, first woman vice president. That is a very powerful mantle, very powerful anointing that you have. And so continue to use your words and your power to shed light on these issues because they will persist even when you're out of office.
That's right. Our thanks to Dr. Marcus Anthony Hunter for joining us today. Our leaders, learners, and listeners, thank you. I thank you.
I thank you all too. Pray for LA, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have to leave it here. Our thanks to the Village that helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, Andy, our producing team, Faraji and Kim, and each and every one of you. Remember, do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means, do something. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.